All right. Good morning, guys. We're recording. Just microphone check. You guys can hear me. I see some of you guys commenting already. Before we do anything, I did want to say, in order to start tracking just communication and involvement, I will have a do now like this each day. It will lead into our conversations and discussions, but please just check for this each morning or each evening. I may do it like tonight. I'll probably post one tonight for tomorrow. All right. This will just allow me to see who is and isn't involved, attending, or engaged. All right. So I need to do that in order to give you guys a little bit of an attendance and participation grade. Looks like we have 28 of you here. It might be everyone. Arafi, it's been like a week, so thanks for coming today. We're glad you can make it. So you had something happen overnight in the House and the Senate seem to have agreed and are planning to pass actually what we're discussing today, which is that COVID-19 government intervention. But then this morning you had something else which is pretty relevant for some. For some might find it irrelevant. So it was the jobs number. So the jobs number for jobless claim came out this morning. So again, you guys can mute or unmute yourself at will. I think I made it so you guys can unmute yourself.
Yeah.
And all right.
Mr. Powers?
Yeah.
This is Hamza. Did class, I'm confused, did class just start? Because this is the start of third period, huh?
9:50.
9:50, right? Okay, cool.
You guys all have the, I start on time now. So I don't wait till like 9:50 and 30 seconds. I usually start around 9:49.
Cool, okay.
The schedule, so I misspoke this morning. I shot you guys a message about 9:30. Disregard that. We're going by the document I had posted in the Discord and the document I had sent and the document on the Moodle site, which says 9:50 Monday, Thursday, and 9 a.m. Tuesday, Friday. And then Wednesday we'll do like 9:30 to 11, 11:30 if you guys need to talk, hash some things out, tutoring, whatever it is. Okay? So what I want to know is what you guys found, right? So what was the jobless claim? What was the number in previous weeks and months? And then do you think that's an accurate depiction of the economy? Why or why not? Is it relevant or irrelevant? Those thoughts that you guys have will springboard into whether or not you need this much of an extensive government intervention. All right. So first question, anybody know what the jobless claims number was?
Yeah, it was approximately 3.3 million.
Yeah, so you're well over 3 million. Does anybody know what they projected for jobless claims? So that's people that are filing for unemployment, basically. You know what they predicted?
I'm checking that out right now.
They predicted about 1.5 million.
Yeah, they predicted 1.5. You had 3.3 or 3.4. 50% higher than they anticipated. Right? So that's pretty drastic.
Wait, more than that? Because wait, Adrian, you said what? It was
1.5. Yeah, so a little bit
1.5.
more. A few hundred thousand claims more. So now here's my question. What did we have in December or January? Just the past few months.
I got 235,000 on December 14th.
Say that one more time, louder.
I got 235,000 on December 14th.
Okay, December 14th, 235,000 jobless claims?
Yep.
Okay, and what'd you get for January, maybe?
January I have 205,000 on the 4th.
Okay, so you have a balance. When those unemployment numbers come out, right, when the non-farm payroll comes out, which we've discussed, you have to take into account new jobs and then subtract the jobless claims, right?
Okay.
So you're not getting unemployment numbers today. what you're getting is jobless claims. So that's very important to understand the difference. All right. So the difference is you're not getting the entire view of if there was Amazon hiring or Walmart hiring. All you're getting is people that lost their job. Okay, so it is looking at it through like a specific lens and not both eyes, if that makes sense. But if you have 3.4 million jobless claims and your average is around 200,000, that is huge. Okay, so that already shows a little bit of negative news on the economy theoretically. Do you think this is an accurate depiction of the economy? Yes or no, and why?
I think it is. Wait, do you want us to chat it or just speak it out?
No. Yo, no, say, tell me. Tell them.
I think it is. I think it is a pretty accurate depiction of like how the economy is doing, because with the epidemic and like millions of people losing their jobs, and with people eventually starting to get like unemployment income, it's fractions of what they were normally making when they were actually actively employed. So now with people making like such low income now, their contributions in terms of spending is going to change, because overall their spending habits are going to have to change. Because if you're making a couple $1,000s a month, and now I think they're saying it would be like $1,200 a month with the unemployment income, that's a huge dip in how much money you now have. So your disposable income is also going to be a lot less. And with you spending less, it's going to hurt businesses more. There's going to be more intervention from the federal government, and we're already conducting deficit spending. That's only going to go up. So altogether, it's showing that this virus has been very detrimental to the economy.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody take the opposite side? That what you saw in 3.4 million people filing for unemployment, basically, that it's not an accurate depiction of the health of the economy.
I have a question.
Okay. Who's that?
It's Ashley.
Ashley.
Would this be considered cyclical unemployment? And if so, wouldn't that mean that if the economy goes up, then everybody that lost would kind of get it back in a sense?
So cyclical. You do have January, usually a period of time where you're laying people off, because what finishes in January?
The biggest shopping season, which is the holiday shopping season.
Yes, the holidays are done. So that's cyclical, right? What you're seeing now, I'm not sure if you would consider it cyclical. You're in the middle of March, right? So I wouldn't consider it cyclical in the sense of it's a normal amount of people filing for jobless claims. Now, are you thinking cyclical in terms of what's happening now goes away and things go back to normal, or cyclical in just this is happening, it is what it is, it'll change?
Yeah, as in it would go away.
Well, then, yeah, then definitely. If you think it's cyclical in that this virus came, it impacted the economy, and everyone will be back to normal within the next 6 to 12 months, then this is very cyclical. It's a big cycle, right? With ups and downs, but you might be able to predict that within 12 months, everyone who had a job has the same job again. Possibly. Anybody want to combat that? Tyler, Vincent, Rafi, we haven't heard from you in a week. Okay, maybe not. Do you think that this 3.4 million number is irrelevant? Kevin Lee, you in here?
I don't.
Mr. Lee, is this number relevant or irrelevant?
So I think it's relevant to us as the people currently like dealing with the economy. But as you can see, if you're looking at the stock market and like a viewpoint from an investor, clearly it does not matter to them because the current stock market is green.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you have a disconnect. You have 3.4 million people looking for a check, and then you have a bunch of investors that were selling stocks for the past 2 weeks, and now they're buying stocks all week.
Like Kevin too.
Say that again?
I would like to add on to Kevin.
Go ahead, Rafi.
So why I believe this is really highly relevant because
Irrelevant.
no, relevant.
Relevant. Okay.
So with previous data so this factor has shown that this was the largest single week increase since the Great Recession. So I believe that's a very important factor to consider, since that Great Recession was a very large episode of time, and now the fact that we're kind of like we have an increased number since the Great Recession shows a big relevant purpose.
Okay, so you're paralleling jobless claims from the Great Recession to today.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case,
Tyler, I have a question.
Hold on one second. In that case, you also have to parallel that you had the biggest stock market rally 2 days ago since the 1930s and the Great Recession also. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's a disconnect between what's happening on Wall Street and what's happening in the economy. Mm-hmm. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. How far ahead is the stock market? How far ahead does it look?
6 months.
6 months. So you're talking 2 to 3 quarters. Thanks, Vincent. Yeah. So 2 to 3 quarters, the market is predicting that this thing is dead and gone, it looks like. And that if you wanted to invest in stocks, you missed the boat on Monday. Because it looks like they're predicting that based on how the stock market's been moving, within 2 to 3 quarters, the world is exactly what it was in January. That's kind of what I'm getting from this. Anybody have a difference of thoughts on that, Vincent, maybe?
That's ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous?
For the world to be, everything to be fine within 6 to 9 months, unbelievable. Because with people like unemployed and whatnot, like going back to like what Ashley was saying, that sure, people are going to, a lot of people might get their jobs back, but at the same time, that's considering that a lot of these companies get funding from the government. If there's a business that says, I'm not going to take money from the government, where are you getting the money to now hire all these employees that you like essentially fired, right? So if people aren't working, they can't contribute to the economy the way they were before because they don't have as much money to spend. So, and also with deficit spending, that's going to increase because the bill that was just passed, like $2 trillion.
Oh, deficit spending doesn't mean anything. We've been deficit spending since the 80s. All we have to do is put the printer on. That doesn't count. You don't have to pay your debts anymore.
But so it still doesn't have a dramatic impact on the economy, at least on the federal level, like not really like with the consumer itself, but just as like a nation as a whole, it doesn't have a huge impact.
You know, it is an interesting time. I digress, and let's move to the next thing I want to discuss. So we're in kind of an agreement that the number is relevant, it seems like. That the number is higher than expected, and that the lasting impact of this could be higher than you anticipate. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Let's do worst case scenario. It is. What does the government do? So you have two factions that can impact the economy, the only two that the government has control over. You have monetary and fiscal policy. Answer now, you guys can see it on screen. The most important to impact the economy. And I didn't vote yet. I'll vote verbally after you guys are done. Monetary, fiscal. Okay. Looks like I have most of the votes, and as the votes go, it doesn't seem like monetary or fiscal are budging much, maybe within 1 or 2%. Okay, we had a 4% jump. Now, who said monetary? Where's my monetary people? We discussed this about originally when we didn't think the United States was going to be impacted. What was the major concern to the consumer and to U.S. companies? What was the major risk?
Companies would shut down because they have no money to operate.
Before that, when they were shutting down Foxconn in China, what were we talking about? What was being impacted? When you get your products, what's that called?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
When you get your products, the process from purchase to getting it.
Supply and demand.
Yes,
Oh.
your supply chain. Who said supply chain?
I did.
Thank you, Vincent. So your supply chain was what we discussed originally. This was really only a supply chain issue. The consumer in the U.S. wasn't impacted. It was healthy. Businesses in the U.S. weren't really impacted. They were still healthy. We were discussing that you just can't get your products from Asia. Supply chain. And we also addressed that would monetary policy be able to fix your supply chain issue?
No, not really.
No.
Right? So it's limited. It's limited on what they can do to get products and other businesses to open and start producing. I would agree with that more than ever, that it's going to be fiscal policy, which has a bigger impact, similar to 87% of you. Let's go to the next one, and let's see why. So this is what monetary policy, if the Fed and Jerome Powell were to be able to do something, what could they not do? So what would the Fed not be able to do? So you have fiscal and monetary. What's the government, what's the White House in charge of, and what's the Federal Reserve Bank in charge of? Okay, so we had a couple that said D, and then they seem to have switched their answer to A. That's fine. What is A? Who controls A?
The government.
Government. Hard
Right.
fiscal policy.
It's fiscal policy. It's considered tax. So this is a fiscal policy concern. So liquidity to banks. So providing cash, like a slush fund for banks to tap into to take out loans or to lend from, would be B. Changing the federal funds rate is C. What's the current federal funds rate?
0.25.
Not 0.5.
Oh, it's 0?
0%.
Is it? Because I just checked.
We cut it all the way to 0, from 0 to 0.25.
Okay.
All right, so they did cut it to 0, what, last week, 10 days ago?
Yeah.
And then buying bad debt. So the Fed can go in, which they've done with hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, and they buy mortgage-backed securities, they buy junk bonds, they buy municipal bonds, they'll buy treasury bonds. So they'll buy
Why
bad
would they
debt.
buy junk bonds?
Why would
What?
they buy bad debt? Why would they?
So why would they buy bad debt? Okay, let's say that, let's see. Well, Ford just got downgraded yesterday. Anybody do the research? I texted you guys, I think. Oh, I put it on Discord. Did anybody see Ford's credit rating drop? I love how you guys search it during class instead of when I text you. So Ford's credit rating was dropped, I believe from BBB to a BB.
BB plus and BBB minus BB plus.
Yes. So if it's BB plus, let's see what the bond chart, would that be considered junk?
Oh.
BB plus would be considered junk. Yeah. It was BBB minus is investment grade, and BB plus is considered junk. So the credit rating agencies dropped Ford to junk level. As a result, would investors want to buy Ford's junk level bonds?
No.
No, it's too
Too
risky.
much.
It's too risky, especially with the fact that they're the Ford plant's closed. If consumers, as Newman and some of you guys said, are not going to have jobs, then how the heck are they going to afford a new car? So you can make an assumption that Ford is not going to make as much as they were supposed to this year, right? With that, you now have an issue where no one wants their bonds. No one wants to own their debt. So the Fed comes in, they'll buy their debt to avoid issues where Ford, one, has limited capital, right? Or where Ford will end up defaulting on their bad debt and not being able to pay it back.
So it's basically like they're just trying to bail Ford out in a way. That's
In
what it
a
is.
sense, yes. It's basically a
Okay.
bailout without giving them the money in their account. They just buy their debt to help them out, right? So it's like taking a book bag off of your back. It lightens the load on their operations, right? It makes their
Okay.
balance sheet a hell of a lot healthier.
At the expense of the government, though, the federal government. Correct.
Well, at the expense of the government, which is at the expense of whom?
Us.
You,
Us.
because it's your dollars that are going towards that.
Yeah.
So, all right, good. Let's move to the next one. On a 5-point scale, how much of an impact do you think monetary policy changes will have? So, interest rates, buying bad debt, liquidity for banks,
Wait, Power, like today or in general?
in general, during what you're facing right now. How much of an impact will monetary policy have on the economy? 1 being a little, 5 being a lot.
So you're saying during like right now, like the coronavirus outbreak, or
Yeah, right now.
okay.
Right now. I'm not talking about in the future. We're talking about today.
Okay.
0 interest rates, 0% federal funds rate, buying bad debt, providing cash to banks for lending programs. 1, it won't impact the economy barely. 5, it will impact the economy a great deal. William, I assume you're in the number 1 very little camp.
I wonder
So-
why.
No, actually.
No? What did you say, William? Which one?
I said 3, which I thought was,
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Who gave me a 1? Who said monetary policy will have little to no impact?
I want to know.
Me
I would
too.
love to know. I just want to know. I just want to know the argument.
Oh, there's 2.
I somewhat agree to a 2. 1 is a bit extreme.
Nobody?
Nobody. Was it an accident? Watch, you're gonna see the 4% disappear in a second.
Lone wolf. Who's the lone wolf?
Who?
I mean, I can argue a 1, to be fair.
Well, I'd rather. I mean, most of us probably could. I'd like to see who that was their first thought. What about 2? Who gave me a 2? Oh man, you guys are terrible this morning. All right, we're gonna move on then.
I said the 2.
Who said 2?
Me.
Who's me? You're not. You're too low. Your voice.
Leland.
Leland?
Yeah.
Leland, let's go. Convince all of these people that it's a 2 and not a 4.
I mean, as of right now.
You're gonna have to speak a little bit louder than that.
As of right now, since the economies, I mean, no one's really spending. Because the economy's going up, it's because the government is interfering. As you can tell, even though the job numbers are high, the stock market's still up. And so even if you lower the interest rate to nearly 0, it barely had any impact when they did it last time. So I still think that even though it's cheap to take out loans, I don't think businesses would, because there's still no one's going to spend. And then because of the virus right now, I think it's going to last a lot longer than people actually think. So there still won't be much consumer spending. So I don't feel like this have an impact as in the current situation.
Okay. You'll have to consider buying bad debt because that's huge. That means Ford can probably keep a lot of their employees employed and pay them. Let's move on to the last. I think I have 1 or 2 more of these. What about fiscal policy? So before we do that, a few things fiscal policy, they handle spending. They handle your tax dollars. And they also, they personally, from the federal government, can provide what would be those tax breaks or loans. So what will fiscal policy impacts look like? Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 very little, 5 a lot. Okay. Seems like everybody thinks that it's got to be a combination of both so far. Well, some of you guys are voting. Brian Ing, which one did you vote?
I voted for
Okay, why?
because I said that like fiscal policy is like the taxes and it impacts like your personal finances and how much you're spending.
All right, so how's that going to impact you today? So your home, your parents or guardians or friends and cousins are home. How is them giving you a check going to help you out?
Like it's gonna get me to like spend more and stuff.
What are you going to spend it on? You're not allowed outside.
That's like then I'd like shop online.
Okay.
I don't really want to spend money now.
All right.
And bills?
Now, let me just give you guys a little heads up. All those checks that are coming out. I don't know if you guys read the article I sent you last night. If you make under $90,000 a year gross, that means before taxes, right? So if you're gross under 90, they'll send you a $1,200 check per person.
Yeah, that's insane.
I heard under 75.
Yeah, I heard it was under 75. Then I heard that they were agreeing that it would be 90.
90. Okay.
Isn't 75 when they start decreasing the amount of money you get? And then
Yeah, it might be progressive. So it may be progressive where they start dropping it the more you make. The final bill is like 803 pages. There's no way in hell I'm reading that.
Of course.
I'll wait and see what CNBC says, and hopefully they're not lying. And we'll wait and see what Trump says, and we'll hope that him and Steven Mnuchin are not lying. But you have to be aware that that money will be counted as income. What does that mean?
Meaning you're going to get taxed on it next year.
Yeah, you are. So you're going to get a $100 check. Brian's going to go shopping, or actually, if I know some of the students in here, you guys will get your check and you'll try to somehow play options with it and invest it. You're still going to have to pay taxes on that. So you're not getting a $1,200 check. How much is your check for?
Like
probably, yeah, 900, 800.
Yeah, you're looking at probably about $900. And since you guys are probably in a lower tax bracket, maybe $1,000, because most of you guys aren't going to hit the $20,000 threshold to really start paying taxes. So you probably get, $1,000 out of that. If you spend all $1,200, you just lost $200.
Wait, so how would that work if you invest in it though? Because it would be income, so they would want to tax you. They'd have to tax you. But then if you make money in your investments, you also have to pay capital gains tax.
If you sell it, right. But we're not going to talk about investing that money yet. What we're just going to say is, Leslie, you guys would get a check. Your family members would get a check under a certain income level. And then whatever you do with it is up to you. Whether you invest it or you buy things or you save it is up to you. But what I'm telling you is if your check is for $1,200, you will have to file it as income when you file your taxes.
Yeah. Okay.
They're not telling people that. Because that's like the bad side.
I heard about that. Some people were saying about they're like, you're giving us free money, but you're also taxing us on it.
Yeah, without telling people, which means you spend it. So you'll spend it thinking you got $1,200 when in reality you really did not get $1,200.
Yeah. This is America. There's no such thing as free money.
Yep.
unless you're Boeing, you get free money.
Hey, whoa, man.
Okay, so one last one. Which of these would you prefer to see? 50-50 support for people and businesses, 25% financial support for people, 75 for businesses, 75 people, 25 businesses, 100% people, 0% businesses. That's the last question. Then we'll go into the actual assignment. All right, 50-50 it seems you guys see. Can I get an argument for 50-50? From somebody, Angelo Chen. Speak to me, brother. Which one did you select? Do you want to unmute? Because I know you're typing. Are you in a noisy area, or can you unmute and you want to share out loud? No mic. Got it. All right, so Angelo, you type. Richie Rich.
Yo.
Yo. Okay. We're listening.
Morning.
What'd you choose?
I chose A.
Because?
Well, I agree with the fact that it should be 50% financial support for the people, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are being affected by the pandemic, and as well as 50% for businesses, because they're the ones who, if the consumer is being hurt and the business is being hurt.
Okay. I can get on board with that. Anybody else?
I agree with Richard because like every business isn't Amazon, Apple, or even Google. There's businesses that are very small and that they actually might be struggling more than consumers.
Okay.
I argue that 25% people and 75% businesses would be better because essentially businesses would hire. If you give businesses money, they would hire more people and buy more products, which is more helpful than helping other people pay their bills.
Same, but I said a different argument. I said that we should give 75% of it to businesses because for every business that you foreclose, you're hurting around 100 people. While you trying to save one person is, people go bankrupt every day. I feel like trying to save people is worthless. Trying to save businesses will eventually save people, especially small businesses. Yeah.
But like, don't you guys think that the consumer, like the normal person, is more vulnerable than a business?
Well, the normal person is also stupider than a business.
Yeah, who cares about saving normal people? The whole entire point is to save as many people as possible, right?
Yeah,
and to do that is to give
you-
small business loans.
I think if you give like a bunch of people money, 50% of them will probably spend it on drugs and the other half on alcohol. So like there's
I don't know about that. I don't know the stats on that. But
Hey, let's not talk about people buying wine during stressful times.
Yeah. Bookshop near my house is still open, but the fucking grocery store is closed.
They're an essential business, Vincent.
Yeah, they're essential business.
Books. Oh man. Dude.
Thank you, De Blasio.
Honestly, what I'm trying to say is, like, I personally think I actually picked 75% people, 25% businesses because of the fact that who that's saying?
Hamza.
Oh, yeah. So like, I think that the common American is a lot more vulnerable because yes, 100%. If you give a lot of money to businesses and they're able to rehire or keep their employees that they were going to fire because of this epidemic, yeah, these employees, they have money and they have money now to contribute to the economy. But at the same time, though, I think that a business should be more prepared financially in cases like this as opposed to the common American. Because now if people, like normal people, who said that?
Oh, it was me. It's Ashley. Then again, a lot of businesses, they were like only holding on by so much before this whole thing happened. So it was like this thing happened, and now they don't even have enough to even pay their employees. So
Good.
they
Now,
have
hold
to
on.
put that.
Let's get to that. So Ashley, that's a great comment. Is it a company's job to? So we talked about this the other day. Your job is to have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund in your bank account. Why in the world is that not the recommendation or the expectation for these businesses?
For a business, yeah. That
Because
100%
businesses
should.
are for growth, and most growth comes from other investors in debt.
100% correct. So what happens is when you get an issue like this, where you have a downturn, you have a kind of a seesaw on who do you help. So which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? If you support the businesses, does it support the people? If you support the people, does that therefore support spending, which supports the businesses? That is the common argument. Let me ask this. If they're only what would be your dollar amount for people? Oh, I do have one more question. What would be the dollar amount you would suggest should be the cap for people getting a check for the government? Is $75,000 or $90,000 gross the appropriate number for an individual person? So 75 gross is probably about 60.
Just them alone, or like
A single person filing their taxes, you're alone, your job, right? So your gross at 75,000 probably equates to about 60 grand, maybe high to mid 50s after taxes. If you're making 90, you're paying like 24 or 27%. That brings you from let's say 100, that brings you down to about 70 to 75,000 a year after taxes. What do you guys think should be the number? Should it be 75? Should it be lower? Should it be 90? Should it be higher?
I think it should be 75. I think that in itself takes care of the most people. I think the most financially vulnerable people. So I would say 75.
Kevin, Kathy, Kevin, Kathy, or Katie, can I hear from you guys? Because I've heard from all these guys before. No offense to all of you guys. Mr. Lanos, can I grab one of you guys? Tina?
Wait, what would you say, Mr. Power?
Tina's not paying attention. It's okay. So my question is, if $75,000 is the threshold to get this check from the government, right? Their fiscal policy sends you basically a refund check. We'll give you $1,200 right now for if you make under $90,000 a year. Should that cap be higher? So if you make $100,000 a year, should you get a check? Yes or no? If you make 95, if you make 140, should you get a check? Yes or no? Or is $90,000 a good number?
I think there should be no cap, because even if there are people that make 100, 200,000 or even more in yearly income, there still will be people that are not financially smart and won't make the decisions to save money. And because of this virus, they won't have any savings to last them. And I think having at least a check of $1,000 or less would help them somewhat.
Wow, so you're not putting up a cap. Okay. Anybody else?
Oh my God.
I would personally argue for it to be lower.
Lower than 90. What would it be?
Like 50.
Oh no.
Whoa, that's ridiculous.
Medium income in the US is like 38.
That's ridiculous. 50?
That was crazy.
Look, man, if you're making like $4,000 a month, $1,000 isn't gonna do that
Wait,
much.
Mr. Powers, you said 27%, and that's for the income, right? That's your income tax, right?
Well,
it depends on the bracket.
It depends on the bracket you're in. So if you're making $75,000 gross, I believe you're at 24%. If you're making $100,000 gross, you're at 27%, something like that.
Okay, so that's like 75.
But I mean, if you're making 90,000 plus, you would like to believe that this individual has a bachelor's, master's degree, and plus, so they should be able to make that smart financial decision to save their money. People that are
just because people make a lot of money doesn't mean that they're going to make smart financial decisions.
And therefore, if they go,
my parents know a lot of people that don't have any savings at all. Maybe $100 or $200 in their bank account, just for random things, and that's it.
At the same time, though, people that are making less money, they like literally all their money goes to bills. So it's not even, as a matter of fact, that they're not saving because they're not smart. They're not saving because they don't have the money to save.
Okay. But what I'm saying, there's some people as well that do make a lot of money that don't save either.
Flag on the play. Time out. Okay. Let's put it this way. We are not going to agree. I think we can all agree to that.
Can you repeat that again? I didn't hear you.
That we're probably not going to agree on a number. This is what the House and the Senate are constantly bickering about. Which number is it? Is it $50,000, because that is medium income is $38,000? If you went to school and you have a bachelor's or a master's and you worked and you do have savings, do you not deserve money because you did make smart financial decisions? Right? If you make $80,000 and you're only $5,000 above the threshold, and you didn't put money in your 401k, then you are above the threshold to get this check, right? Or what if you make $110,000 a year and you just bought a house, and now you are currently laid off or not working at your second job, and now you're not getting it? So
Wait, Power, can you repeat that?
All right. Every single person in the country has different financial situations. You can be a teacher making $80,000 a year, have a side job making $20,000 a year. Now you're making $100,000 a year. Well, you're no longer doing your side job, which means your salary is now $80,000 a year. But because your government is going based off last year's taxes, they're not giving you that $1,200 check. And what if this person just bought a house or a car and they have a higher payment? They did not anticipate this happening where they couldn't work a second job. So this is the issue that you see across the government where they can't agree, similar to you guys. And it's okay not to agree at your level. It is not okay for them because they're the ones that we're taking so much time to pass this. All right. So here's what I want to do now. It was a great conversation. I do want to kind of jump away from this. I did have one more question I wanted you guys to fill out. I'd rather kind of go to what we're discussing today. You have your government intervention assignment, which I extended to Friday, 11:59 p.m. All right, so just get it to me before midnight Friday, and you guys will be fine. All right. What else I have is I sent it to you guys. I sent you guys and let me search for it. I know Apple News had it, the 2 trillion package. So I sent you guys, sorry, I hear you, Will, give me a second. I sent you guys this link, whether it was Yahoo Finance or I think it was the Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street, yeah.
Wall Street Journal, yeah. It goes through, and sign in to read the story, of course, that's obnoxious. So if you guys search up the $2 trillion coronavirus bill, you will find a lot of information on what the government is actually doing and what they're saying they're doing with this money. So if I can get this link open.
I think
Yeah, they have everything like organized, like where they're putting all these billions, like.
Okay, so they have organized it loosely, and here's how. So I hate how all these links, they load and then they all of a sudden load to something new. Give me 1 second. So where's it go? One, you have direct payments to people.
Yeah. Post unemployment insurance.
All right, so you have direct payments to people. Gross income is more than 75 and more than 90 would not qualify at all. So there you go.
Bottom line, what this is essentially a bridge loan to get the economy.
All right, shut her up. Let's explain to you guys what a bridge loan is in a minute. Student loans will be. Guys, who's typing over there?
Yeah.
Mute yourself if you're typing because you're annoying everybody. Thank you. All right. So student loan payments were suspended. Let's see. Boost for unemployment benefit. So they extended how long you can get unemployment. There's a $500 billion lending program, which is broken down into air carriers, cargo carriers. Let's see. No money for the border wall. Airlines and airports get funding. Hospitals get funding. Contractors, like freelancers. So your programmers. The gig economy, they're looking at some financing, protection against foreclosures and evictions, the Performing Arts Center in DC. So
why do they need $25 million?
That is a very different discussion you can have, because I know that New York City also asked for about, what was it, like $3 billion for their museums. They said their museums would have to close permanently if they didn't get $3 billion.
What the?
What?
So,
oh my God.
Yeah, that's I can't help you guys with that. I try to wrap my head around some of these numbers also. It's pretty extravagant. So either way, you guys can sift through all of that. But this document I have you guys working on has a few key elements to look at. First, the current economic situation. So the first thing was insert data points about, minimum of 2 to 3 sentences or bullets per response. So that means this bullet gets 2 to 3 sub-bullets, right? So this is, let's say, 3, 6, 9. You're looking at 12 statements for this section. So you can't just insert 2 data points in terms of like, 6 million people, 600,000 people were infected and 87 people died. Those cannot be your 2 data points. You need 2 to 3 sentences or bullets per response, which is per bullet. Just to clarify that, because I had a few questions on that yesterday that I clarified via Discord, right? If you guys aren't on the Discord, you should already be on it. That was a requirement. I had told you guys to do that. So I'm hoping that you guys get on there. So insert 2 data points about the U.S., about the global impact or the global data about the virus, 3 bullets on current policies that exist, and then data points on projections on the impact it will have on the economy. All right, then you move on to actual economic ramifications. So specifically travel companies, assumptions you can make about Apple as a company, payment companies such as Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, or Square, and assumptions you can make about the consumer. Okay, so again, imagine 2 to 3 sentences per bullet. Don't just list me a specific number.
Okay.
The Fed with monetary policy. What did the Fed do recently? So one of your answers should definitely be cutting rates to 0. Why did they do whatever policy adjustments that you're going to comment on? And then the impact you think it'll have. Right? The impact that you think this will then therefore have. So is fiscal policy more important than monetary policy? That's your final piece. What's included in fiscal policy? Right? So you have your taxes, you have your spending program. So should the government put together a spending program to hire more people, construction workers, or fixing roads, or hiring healthcare workers, or people in the airports, increasing the numbers hired to work on cybersecurity? Like what should their policy be?
Again, is that like currently, like the current economic condition? Where
This is all today.
Okay.
Today, Monday, Thursday, last week, whatever it is.
Fiscal, monetary. Got it.
Whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you would like to see. What you would like to see, the strategies and predictions that what you'd like to see will have. So right now, the government says $75,000 and less, you'll get a check. Well, if you really think that that number should be $50,000 or less, I'd like to see your argument on that strategy. I'd like to know what data you have. I'd like to see the fact that Vincent said, well, 60% of the United States median income is $38,000. Well, where's your source? If that's real, then maybe that is the number that it should be. But if you're also offering hundreds of billions of dollars to Boeing or JetBlue or cruise liners, I'd like to know why people making $100,000 a year aren't getting a check, and these large companies that also didn't manage their money are getting a check. So those are things that you guys have to think. You kind of have to play devil's advocate. All right. And for each strategy, if your strategy did not get implemented, right? So if your strategy was $150,000, not $75,000, if that was your strategy, what happens if that strategy doesn't get approved by the government? What do you think the ramifications of that are? So what if people with small businesses got loans, but the loan cap was 100 grand rather than 300 grand? Okay. What would that do to those businesses? So it depends on what your personal strategy is. It involves you to actually put yourselves in the shoes of the government and make a strategic decision on what you would do if you were setting policy. All right, for monetary, and then at the end for fiscal policy. Are there any questions on that?
No, sounds good.
I know some of you guys started it. So since this bill was passed or will be passed theoretically today or tomorrow, you kind of can find the whole outline of the bill. I do not mind if you read the bill and it helps to kind of sway a little bit of your monetary and fiscal policy opinions. I'm not completely against that. What I am against is you copying what they wrote, pawning it off as your own, and then not giving me why this strategy would or wouldn't be effective.
Power, I have AP macro, so I'm gonna have to leave.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
English as well.
10:40, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's when it starts.
we're done. We're done. You guys can head out. I'll stay for a few minutes with any questions. But I think you guys are pretty good. Go to your other
All right.
classes.
Thank you.
You guys, any
Bye,
questions?
Bye, Mr. Power. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Mr. Power,
Have a good day.
you too. Stay safe.
All right, you guys too. Anybody who's staying, do you have any questions? Otherwise, I can let you guys go in about a minute.
Wait, Mr. Powers, so basically 3 bullet points with 2 sentences each?
So you have an option. It's either, so take this question. What are 2 assumptions you can make about travel companies based on the current times we're living in? This bullet has to be 2 to 3 sentences or 2 to 3 bullets to respond to this bullet.
Oh, okay, yeah, I did that already. Okay.
Yeah. So imagine each bullet is a question, and each question has to be either 2 to 3 sentences or 2 to 3 sub-indented bullets.
So for the data, like the first few questions, because like it's only like, I thought you only want like numbers. Do I have to further explain each numbers?
Yes. If you can go into like a little more depth, a sentence on the number. So don't just say 40,000, 3,000 people died in Spain on Tuesday, March 23rd, right? What you would want to say is a little more information on, 3,000 people died in Spain on March 23rd. 45% of them were above the age of 60, and 55% of them were 20 to 35, and then period. This goes against the theory that only old people can get sick and pass away from this virus.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So just a little bit more information on that, and I think you'd be fine.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anybody else?
Wait, so would it be 2 sentences for each data point, or just 2 sentences in total? So
No, so total. So
okay.
Total. What I don't want, Chris, is that you just tell me 3,000 people died in Spain, because that doesn't finish the thought.
Yeah.
I need you to kind of finish that thought process. 10,000 people in New York have the virus. Well, that's a good data point, but you have to extend that piece. 10,000 people in New York have it. 9,000 of them are in New York City. Period. One more sentence.
All
right. So just a little bit more depth into each data point. When you get to economic ramifications, this is a lot of opinion. You'll probably go more than 2 to 3 sentences. You'll probably do more than 2 to 3 for the Fed very easily, and then the same thing here. But yeah, for each bullet, it's really just 2 to 3 sentences we're looking for.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I'll let you guys go, and we'll really get deeper into that bill tomorrow in class. Class for you guys is 9 a.m. tomorrow.
All right.
All right. I'll let you guys go. Have a good day.
So about the Fed, so does that mean we will writing from the Fed perspective?
Yes. So right here, if you look, Xiaoyi, so the current economic status is just what you currently are seeing. Economic ramifications is all opinion and research. This is you being the Fed, right? This is you being the Federal Reserve, and this is you being President Trump, this part right here. So this is you are the Fed, what should you do? This is you control fiscal policy. You're the White House, you're Congress, you're the Senate, what should you do? Okay?
Okay.
All right. I will see you guys tomorrow. If you have any questions, you guys can text me or reach out on the Discord app. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Okay.